Thank you, Charlotte. Kia ora, everyone. Yeah, it's good to be here. And I was just chatting to Ola, who's just calling in from Sweden, and I can see people from Australia and all over New Zealand, which is exciting. Good, cool. All right, let me. Today we'll use a mix of slides and a bit of me talking and a couple of exercises just to walk through it. So if you can allow me just to share my screen. You should be seeing my slides now. Can someone confirm?
Sure can.
Cool, all right, thank you. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how do you create emotional culture and why it is important and what it is and all things around it. So if you are here to hear about something else, that may not be the call you wanted to dial in for, but that's going to be the main topic for today. Yeah, my name is Jakub Julkiewicz. So just imagine there's, instead of J, there's Y at the beginning. It's gonna make it easier to pronounce my name. At the same time, I'm never offended when someone calls me Jacob, so don't worry if you do. Cool, before we jump into the topic, a couple of sentences about myself so that you can get a bit more context about me. How do I change slides now? Oh, okay, sorry, I'm just getting focus on Zoom, which I don't want. Give me a second, trying to figure out how do I make it. Oh, it did work. Okay, cool. I'm an Agile coach. I've been an Agile coach since 2013. But maybe let me say that my accent comes from Poland. So that's why sometimes you may not be able to understand me. Sorry for that. I will do my best to speak proper English. I work at Freedom now. Freedom is a software company. We are part of Visa, and we make software for managing credit cards and credit card expenses and so on. I'm the Kaizen practice lead over there, helping all the Kaizen coaches improve their craft and helping us creating more effective organization. Other than that, I am also running this thing called Agile Coaching Lab, which is an intense program for Agile coaches and Scrum Masters who want to improve and want to level up and become better coaches. I'm also pro elephant rider, and that's important because we are going to talk about what it means to be an elephant rider. And another thing about me is that I'm a co-host of a podcast about Agile Life and Monkeys. The podcast is called Jakub. Yes, it is a mix of Joe and Jakub together. Yes, I know it's an unusual name, but that's on purpose. Anyway, if you're interested, have a look, Google us, and you're gonna find our episodes. I was lucky that I found Agile pretty early in my career. It was back at the university in 2005. I still remember the first time when I was in my first stand-up. I still remember the room and the people around me, which is pretty exciting and pretty nice. As I mentioned, I started coaching in 2013, and I've been having emotions, I think, since day one I was born. I don't remember my initial emotions, but I'm pretty sure that was something was happening in my brain and my heart. And I was having different kind of emotions throughout my life. And if I can maybe stop sharing for a second. So if I can think about how I feel right now, is that first of all, I feel thankful. I think thankful for being invited here and you know, when Charlotte reached out to me, it's if I could speak to you guys, you know, I felt in some ways appreciated and very validated. So I'm thankful that I can be here and connect with all of you and share some of my knowledge. I also feel supported being here. I can recognize some of the faces, some of the people we used to work together, or we connected in different ways. So I feel that there are people here who are here to support me in different ways. At the same time, I'm feeling very nervous because here are people are here who I know. So, it's always a bit weird, what are they going to think about me? And now they're gonna discover I'm not the person who I'm pretending to be and all of this stuff. So I'm feeling a bit nervous about that and a bit uncomfortable. Well, public speaking is not something it's kind of that comes natural to me. And second of all, doing it virtually and not being able to see you. Well, I can see some of you have cameras on, which is always useful, but still not feeling the energy in the room and, not seeing the 3D version of yourself is a bit tricky. So I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable. And I'm wondering how you are feeling. What are some of the emotions that you have right now? So maybe if you could open chat on the bottom toolbar or bottom pane, you should be able to see a chat option. You could open chat and maybe if you can share with us, just write 1 or 2 emotions that you're feeling right now. What are the main emotions? So they can be positive, negative. What are the emotions you are feeling right now? Cool, we're getting first one, interested, curious. Okay. I am liking your room. Thank you. Someone enjoying my wine bottles. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a wine geek. Tired, excited, belonging. Thank you. Sentimental, interested, curious, more open, interested, curious. Okay, keep them coming. Welcome, excited, happy, distracted, happy. Cool. 10 more seconds. Tired. Yeah, it's very early in Sweden. Curious to see. You've tried emotional intelligence, tired, but looking forward to learning. Cool. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Let's come back to the, I need to start sharing again. I hope it's gonna work a bit better now. Keynote. Cool, so that's our agenda for today. We're gonna start with a short warm-up where we'll put you into breakout rooms and you will have a chance to experiment with some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about today. Then after you come back from the breakout rooms, you will have a chance to learn a bit more why emotions matter. Some of you may already know it. Some of you may kind of have the sensitivity or intuition that emotions are important, but I will also share some of the research and some of what some of the smart people are telling about it. I will tell you how to use this tool called Emotional Culture Deck with your teams, with leaders, and also on an organizational level, how we can use the tool, but you can also use other approaches to co-create the emotional culture. And at the end, I will also show you how you can privately also use it in your private life or for your own self-reflection and self-improvement. And at the end, we should have time for questions. Okay, we're gonna go to warm up. If I can change slides. No, I can't. Oh, I should. Oh, yeah, cool. All right, warm up. So a bit of icebreaker. I want you to have a think. How have you felt in the past week? So last 7 days, including today. How have you been feeling? What are the strongest or the most prevalent emotions? And I want you to do it in 2 turns. Okay. First, have a look at these cards. I hope you can see them. These are black cards with kind of yellowish or orangish text. And you can see there are names of emotions we often perceive as positive. I want you to have a look at these cards and pick either 1 or 2 cards that best describe how you've been feeling in the last week. Okay, have a maybe 30 seconds or 1 minute individually. Maybe take a note on a post-it or in your notepad, and pick 1 or 2 emotions that the best describe how you've been feeling. Okay. Cool. Okay, 10 seconds left. Okay, and you can start preparing the breakout rooms. Okay, second part of the exercise. Trying to change slide again. It's not so easy. Okay, cool. Have a look at these cards. You should be seeing now white cards with, again, kind of brownish, orangish kind of color of text on it. And these are cards that represent emotions we often see as negative. Again, have a think and pick the one emotion from this list that also was with you in the past week. What was one of the a bit more negative emotion that has been with you in the past 7 days? Okay, just pick one, maybe pick two if you want. Have a minute to think about it, make a note. Cool, okay. So in a second, I will ask you to go into breakout room, but before you do, what was expected of you? When you're gonna get to a breakout room of 5 or 6 people, and you will have 5 minutes, or maybe let's give you 6 minutes, 6 minutes to share the emotions and maybe one sentence per emotion. Why were you feeling this? And feel free to share as much as you want. So you don't have to go too deep. But if you want to go deep, go deep. And so for me, it would be I felt reassured because I got really good feedback from people in my team, and I felt that what I'm doing is actually a good thing, and I was able to overcome some of the obstacles, and so I feel reassured. And at the same time, I feel disconnected from people in my family back in Poland, and knowing what they are going through is pretty hard. So feeling not being able to have a proper conversation and then see them and meet them, is a bit disheartening. So yeah, feeling disconnected as well. So that's me. And we'll put you into breakout rooms for 6 minutes. Feel free to share your emotions. If you just want to name their emotion, that's also fine. So use the time however you want, but try to give space for everyone to share what were the positive and negative emotions that have been with you in the last week. Cool. Sorry?
Opening the rooms now.
Cool.
It's the timer. Everyone should be back now.
Cool. All right. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your conversation in your breakout rooms. Yeah, that's gonna be the basis of our whole evening. All right, I will share my screen again. And we'll go into a bit of theory behind it. Why did we do what we just did? Okay, so share and present. Cool. Okay. Okay, so why do emotions matter? Why do you talk about emotions? Why do you want to bring emotions into the workplace? Well, there are multiple reasons, and I will probably only mention a few of them. Let's start with this lady, Maya Angelou, who was American poet and a writer, and she said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And when I'm thinking about my past and about, for example, my teachers, I have no idea what specifically they did or what they said, but I remember what kind of emotions they ignited in me, and how I was feeling when I was going to a classroom, and how I was feeling when I was exiting the classroom, and when they were giving me grades, I remember how I was feeling. So, and also thinking about friends and thinking about people that really impacted me, I can truly remember the emotions that were related to these interactions, but it's very hard to remember exactly what they did or what they said. And with this in mind, it is very surprising how most organizations don't care how their people are or should be feeling at work. We don't talk about this. We almost pretend it's not important or it's not appropriate. For many years, I've been hearing that we should leave emotions at home, and at work we should be professional. We should be, very well behaved, and we should never bring emotions to work, which is impossible, first of all. Second of all, it's very hard to when we even try to do it. One of the examples I like to share is in one of the exercises that I did with one of the teams, and we were talking how people wanted and didn't want to feel at work. And one person shared that he was sometimes feeling powerless at work, and he was explaining why he felt powerless. And he shared that at home he had a teenager, and the teenager was going into kind of a bit of a phase, and this guy just felt powerless at home, and he was bringing this emotion with him to work, and he just couldn't leave it at home. He was feeling exactly the same at work, and it showed me, or it proved to me, that you cannot just separate work from home, and whatever happens at home you bring it to work, and whatever happens at work you bring it home. And it doesn't have to be papers or tasks that you bring one way or the other, but it's your emotions, your whole heart that you bring with you. So we just cannot, you cannot not feel. We cannot not feel. Yeah. It's surprising that organizations, they don't care about it much, or they don't talk about it. They can't admit that it's important. At the same time, in 2016, in Harvard Business Review, there was this article that talked about emotional culture. So we talk about culture, and there are multiple different definitions of culture. And that's another one which talks about emotional culture. So how people feel at work, what emotions people feel at work, and how emotions are important to shape the culture in our organizations. So organizations, they don't talk about emotions, but studies show that there is a significant impact of emotions, and the impact is on how people perform tasks, how engaged they are, how creative they are, how committed they are to their organizations, and how they make decisions. Emotions have already impact on all of this. So again, us not at the meeting that emotions are important is we are basically not allowing ourselves to help people perform tasks better, be more engaged, be more committed, and make better decisions. Instead of that, companies tend to focus on the shared values and behaviors and overall tone, how employees should think and behave at work. We all know all the values posters on the walls and how we want people to follow these values, and the values are brought during performance reviews and different conversations and so on. But at least in my experience, the values are very often very, very high level, and leaders often don't follow these values, so it's very hard to have role models to follow these values. We rarely talk about these values. So it's very hard to really put them into practice. They are there so that we can show that we have values, but I found it very hard to follow them. And I don't think that many people really remember the values that their company has. They cannot really, say it by heart. And that's really important to talk about emotions, because research shows that the other critical part of how people think and behave is the emotional culture. So how people feel at work. It is crucial. So how can we create a space to have a conversation about this? How can we have a space to talk about emotional culture and how people feel and don't want to feel at work? And let's look at another person, Dale Carnegie. You may remember him, an author again, and he said also a very interesting thing. He said that when dealing with people, remember you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but with creatures of emotions. So again, saying something very similar, how emotions are important and how easy it is for us to think that we are logical creatures, but we are not. And this was also very well described in this book called Switch by Chib and Dan have a book here and a bit different cover. And they talk, I don't even think that was their idea. I think they borrowed the metaphor from someone else. But in the book is about how to change things when change is hard. They use the metaphor of an elephant and a rider, where they say that every person is like is like a rider on an elephant, where rider represents our logical brain. So what we want to do, what logic tells us to do, what all the reasons and all the arguments are telling us to do, and we are or the rider is sitting on this big elephant that represents our emotions. So we can have all the good arguments, all the logical reasons to do something, but we are still sitting on the elephant that can do whatever it wants. And we are creatures or we are almost slaves to this big elephant. And not admitting that this elephant exists is not going to help us steer the elephant where we want to go. So they in the book they talk about 3 things that we need to do to help people make change when change is hard. First, we need to direct the rider. So we need to give the logical reasons why we need the change, why we want to change. We also talk about we need to motivate the elephant. So we need to give these emotional reasons or the emotional will to make the change. And then we need to shape the path so that the path for the elephant and the rider is downhill, it's not uphill. So we need to make sure that the change is easy for people. It's not hard. So I think that's another reason why we should talk about emotions, especially when we talk about change. And we as Agile coaches, Scrum Masters, and our people in Agile in general, we often want people to change or we need people to change. And we have all the best arguments, and we are giving examples of other companies, how they did it, what are the improvements or the outcomes or on the revenue increase or the better customer satisfaction. And we tell these arguments to our employees, but they don't feel that they should change. They don't have this emotional connection to this change. So it's going to be hard for them again to convince their elephant that, hey, you should be part of this change. And again, research shows that, where's my slide? I'm struggling with changing the slide. So, and research shows that positive emotions are consistently associated with better performance, better quality, and better customer service. So how can we help people feel better at work? At the same time, negative emotions, such as anger, sadness, fear, and so on, they often lead to negative outcomes, including poor performance and high turnover. So again, how can we create space when we can openly talk about these emotions and help people find a way to cope with them? Not necessarily eliminate all negative emotions, because that's impossible, because we are humans again. But how can we help people cope with some of these emotions? Doesn't make sense so far. Can I get, maybe if you can go into chat and give me a thumbs up or a yes or no or question mark. If there's a lot of question marks, we can maybe take a break for questions, because I want to make sure we are. And maybe Ant or Charlotte, if you can look at in the chat, because I cannot see the chat right now. How does it look?
So far, we've just got Ola who mentioned about the book Writer and the Elephant, coined by Jonathan Haidt. The first book
Cool.
was Happiness Hypothesis.
Thank you,
We've had someone say looks good. We've had someone else that says, yep, makes sense. Anyone else?
Okay.
Yes.
Let's keep going.
What feelings do we want to feel? Then behaviours.
Cool. Okay, I will give more examples. Maybe it's also going to make a bit more,
Cool.
yeah, more closer to reality, what could look like. So I hope we know now why emotions are important and why we should not skip the conversation about emotions. So let's talk how we can start conversation about this in teams. I feel that for many of us, working with teams is the most natural or the thing that we are most used to. It doesn't mean we should stop there, but I feel that that's the place where we could start talking about this. So here on this picture, we can see this decks of cards, and I was using a very similar deck in the beginning when I was telling you how I was feeling at the beginning of this presentation. And then I'm just showing it now. There's a deck of cards which have names of emotions on them, and it's basically the cards you could see on my slides, the black cards and the white cards. These cards are in the deck, and you can use this deck or just the slides, to be honest, especially virtually. You can use the slides just to start conversation about emotions. And let me show you how I'm using it with teams. So here's another quote, this time from Reinventing Scale-Ups. And they say that the best cultures are co-created and subsequently kept healthy when the team proactively decides how it will work together. The process inoculates against unhealthy behavior. And I love it because it talks how the culture needs to be co-created and how it inoculates against unhealthy behavior. And we are talking about emotional culture. So how can we help the team co-create emotional culture? So on this picture, you can see this is a team at Air New Zealand. Maybe it was 3 years ago. And that's their sustainability team. Small team, 5 people. And this was an exercise when they were answering the question, how do we want to feel at work? And each of them initially individually were choosing the 5 black cards, which have the positive emotions. 5 black cards deciding how I want to feel at work or how I need to feel at work to be successful. What are the top 5 emotions I need to feel at work to be successful? And then that was the first part. And then they shared how they need to feel to be successful. And then the second part was choosing the white cards, which have the names of the negative emotions or emotions that we see as negative or perceive as negative. And they were answering the question, these are the top 5 emotions I don't want to feel at work, but from time to time I might. And this part, from time to time I might, is the crucial here, because it makes us think, okay, what emotions from time to time I'm feeling right now at work, but I don't want to feel them anymore. They are stopping me, they are hindering me. So we can start talking about how do I need to feel at work to be successful, and how I don't want to feel at work, but from time to time I might. So I chose first 5 black cards and then 5 white cards, and they were sharing in a kind of round robin style. It took us about an hour and a half. It was amazing how they were already a great team. They liked each other, they were working well together. But it kind of made it to the power of 10 or 100, all the emotions or the energy in the room, to the extent where one of them at the very end, she said that she was feeling these butterflies in her stomach, kind of flying around of happiness and positive emotions and love. And she just jumped out of her chair and she started hugging people because she just wanted to share it with everyone. And even though, we talk about some of the negative emotions they were feeling, it created this deep connection between them. And after about 2 weeks, we came together. They brought their cards that they chose, So each of them had 5 black cards, 5 white cards. And we also started talking, okay, so that's your individual emotions, but how do you want to feel as a team, as a unit? So we are not discarding the emotions you are feeling individually. They are also very important. But as a team, how we would like to feel. And I often, when I do this exercise with them, I often ask additional question to help them with that. I ask them, if a new person joins your team tomorrow, how would you like this person to feel in your team? And how you don't want this person to feel in your team when they join. And it helps them feel, okay, it's not about how I feel, but how we all feel in this team and how we all don't want to feel in this team. In a second, I will show you a canvas that we use for this conversation. And through the canvas, so first they decided the 5 top emotions they want to feel as a group and 5 top emotions they don't want to feel as a group. And from there, they went to discussing, okay, so if we want to feel connected, how do we know that people around us feel connected? So what we would need to hear or see to know that people around me feel connected. So we start talking almost, if you think about empathy map and how, in design thinking or in general design process, how we start to build empathy for the customer. It's something very similar here, but how do we build empathy for our coworkers, for our people around us, so that we can start being more sensitive. How do they behave? What do we hear from them? What do we see that they do or don't do? So that we know that they feel connected, so that we know that they feel inspired, so that we know that they felt maybe disconnected, or maybe they felt remorse or whatever it is that we didn't want them to feel. And from there, we start talking about specific actions, specific things we want to do or stop doing. And we get to specific things that we want to put in place so that we can start building this emotional culture that is defined by these top positive and top negative, or top 5 positive and top 5 negative emotions. This is another, how do I change? Yeah, this is another team. Again, that was there in New Zealand. Very new team. They haven't worked together before. They were playing with the cards. And this was an exercise you may know the team canvas, pretty popular tool to kind of do the team chartering or team lift-off exercise. And in team canvas, there is this one of the parts which talks about values. And with this team, I decided to use the cards to, instead of coming up with values, I wanted them to come with emotions, how they want and don't want to feel in this team. It was a brilliant exercise. It even though they didn't really know each other, it created this deep connection straight away. And it's almost like magic happened. Initially, they were a bit shy and not sure how to behave. And after this exercise, they were much more connected and a lot of laughter and a lot of just having a good time. And I know that when I'm saying it, it may seem like it's a silver bullet. It's not. I want to make sure that we know that it's not a silver bullet, and we need to also make sure that we know when and how we use this tool, because there's also certain duty of care behind it if we facilitate exercise like this. Because sometimes we can open very deep reflection in people, and very deep kind of past experiences can come to people sometimes. So something, you need to be prepared for that. So it's not that you just can go around and do these exercises in any way you like. I think you just need to be prepared that there might be some tough conversation happening there. But having said that, 95% of my experiences are very, very positive, and I don't want to scare you now. I just want to make sure that you remember that, as with any tool, there are consequences of using a tool. Cool. Another example, that was a digital agency, and we were doing a bit of retrospective for them. They haven't had one for a while. And that was, they had their leadership there, and they were talking about, okay, so why the salespeople could start sharing why they felt, how they felt not being able to get the sales, and how the CEO was feeling, and how people in the teams were feeling. And it opened up this great new actions for them, how they wanted to move forward from there. This is an example from a Wellington cricket team. And you can see, you know, this is also how they created their emotional culture. They basically said how they wanted to feel individually. And then on the bottom, you can see what were the top emotions, how they want and don't want to feel as a team. And it's, you know, this poster is only kind of a surface of it. The magic is behind the conversations happening when we talk about this, why we want and don't want to feel these emotions. So when you look at the deck, you can either use the cards on the slide that I showed you, or you can use a physical deck. And physical deck has this white deck of, this kind of sub deck of white cards and black cards. So as I mentioned before, the black cards, they have the names of positive emotions, and names of, and white cards, they have the names of negative emotions. And then you have all the other cards, which are useful, but not all of them. Some of them, the ones with step 1 to step 9, they are basically instructions helping you go through an exercise. So I often don't use them. I use the green and the red cards and the black and white cards. So that's what I focus on. So with a team, you focus on the questions on the green cards. And the most important question is, my success relies on feeling this, and asking people to choose the top 5 black cards. How do they need to feel to be successful at work? And then you use the red cards, and especially the one on the bottom that you can see now on the slide, which says, I don't want to feel this, but I might from time to time. And you use this card and the white cards, and people choose the top 5 emotions they don't want to feel at work, but from time to time they might. This is the canvas I was mentioning. So again, as a team, you can put your desired emotions or desired feelings, undesired feelings, and you can talk about empathy, undesired behaviors, some rituals and actions, and things that you want to start doing. Here's an example of one of the teams. You can see that that's only part of the canvas. They wanted, on the right, you can see that they wanted to feel as a team supported, optimistic, inspired, courageous, and open. And that was their ideation of how do they know when someone feels open? So what do they need to see or hear to know that someone feels open? So they said that we know that people are around us feeling open because we challenge the norm, because we are transparent and honest, because we show vulnerability, because we are approachable and approached, because we are willing to learn and change and all of this stuff. So we start from going, that's the emotion, to specific, how do we know that people are feeling this emotion? And that's another example of a canvas that you can do with a team. Okay. Another way how you could use this with a team, that was the team we did the exercise before. They chose in their case, the top 6 emotions. They couldn't decide on 5. And the 5 is a arbitrary number, right? So you just use a number because you don't want them to have 20 most important emotions, because then none of them are really important. So if a team wants to choose 6 or 4, that's fine. So they chose 6, sorry. And later, maybe I think it was 2 or 3 months later, we did a bit check-in in a retrospective when we put the names of the emotions that they wanted to feel: inspired, supported, welcome, involved, appreciated, and open-minded. And we asked them to just rate, in the last couple of weeks, how often did you feel the emotion? And we gave them the dots, and they were rating it from 1, I haven't felt it at all, to 5, I've been feeling it almost all the time. And then after this, we just had a conversation about this. What was surprising? What was not surprising? What do you want to change? What actions you want to take from this, and so on. Again, another way to use the emotions, to have a conversation about emotions at work. And some of the feedback I got from using this. Someone said that a workshop that I did with them, and it was an amazing way to help our team rediscover themselves and find new ways to a common understanding of our values and expected behaviors. So again, it's not now me telling you that it is really cool, but it's other people actually experiencing it. And Simon Sinek, I think he has some event today because people from my work went to the event with him. He said, when people are financially invested, they want a return. When people are emotionally invested, they want to contribute. So again, going back to this co-creation and talking about emotion, how powerful it can be when it's done well, and when we engage people in this way, and we give them space to talk about emotions. Okay, I will just take a sip of water. It doesn't stop with teams. If we stop with teams, probably we are not doing all that we could be doing. So leaders are also an important part of this. So how do we work with leaders, and how do we help leaders talk about emotions? First of all, when leaders ignore or fail to understand emotion, they are glossing over a vital component of what makes organizations tick, and their companies and people suffer. And that's unfortunately what often happens, is that leaders, they want to look at results, they want to look at behaviors, then don't, or they are afraid of talking about emotions because maybe they don't know how to handle it. And that's fine. We are human. That's why we are talking now how we can give them a way to do it. But when leaders recognize emotions in the workplace and they consciously shape these emotions, they can better connect with and motivate their employees. So how can we help our leaders to connect with employees through these emotions? And why leaders are so important? Well, because another quote from School Culture Rewired, it says that the culture of any organization is shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. So it's again, how much impact the leader has on the culture, and if the leader is not aware how people are truly feeling around him or her, it's going to be very hard to make true change. So how do you use it with leaders? You can use the same deck of cards again, but we just change the questions a bit. So you can look back at the green and red cards. So the white cards and the black cards, the two kind of subdecks, they say the same. We have names of the positive and negative emotions. But the green and red cards changed a bit. So we ask people, instead of my success relies on feeling this, you can see that the bottom green card says our success relies on our people feeling this. And the red cards changes from I don't want to feel to we absolutely don't want our people to feel this. So it changes how do we want people around us, people who work with us, for us, how we want them to feel, how do I want people in my team to feel, and how I absolutely don't want our people to feel. And then we start there, we can start asking questions. Okay, so if you want your people to feel inspired, what you could be doing, what are you doing right now to make them feel inspired? What should you start doing to make them feel inspired? And what you should stop doing to make them feel inspired? And if you don't want them to feel nervous, okay, so what you might be doing right now so that they are nervous, what you might want to stop doing, and maybe what you need to start doing so that they don't feel nervous, if that's what you absolutely don't want people to feel. And again, there's a small canvas that I use with leaders. And again, it's first building. So a leader, I would do an exercise one-on-one with a leader, and they would start filling in the canvas in their own time, and then we'll talk about this later. So it talks about, first they say our success relies on people feeling this, and they put the 5 emotions there, and then they say, I know people are feeling this if I see or hear. So again, building the empathy. How do I know that people around me feel nervous? How do I know that people in my team feel disconnected? Or they feel inspired? How would I know that? How can I train my sensitivity to this? And then our people won't feel this if I do this. And to help people feel this way, I need to do something, or to help people manage or cope with this feeling, I need to start doing or stop doing this and this. It's again going from what culture we want to create to specific actions and to self-reflection of a leader. And that's a feedback I got after doing a session like this with one of the leaders, one of the organization. Yeah, and it's just amazing how impactful it can be for them, because that's the time. Sometimes that's the first time they ever had to think about their people around them and to have time to self-reflect and to find a way for their own leadership and the vision for their own leadership. Because leadership can also be very vague concept, and that gives them a more specific things they want, that they can do to be a better leader, to be the leader they want to be. Okay, so we talk about teams, we talk about leaders, but I was able to use it across a whole department. It was back at New Zealand. In the digital part, we were trying to redesign or co-create the culture we wanted to have in digital. And we did a workshop with about 70 people in one room. And you can see here that we are using the cards. And we basically asked the questions. 70 people in one room. They were working in teams of, I think, 6 or 7, 10 different, no, there was 6 teams of about 10 people. I think that was this way, but 6 tables of about 10, 11 people. And they were asked questions. So how do you want to feel at work? And we focus on the positive emotions for this workshop. And they chose at the end 6 top emotions they want to feel. And from there, we created a bit simplified version of the canvas. So it's not the big canvas we would normally use with a team, that was a simplified version that we use for the specific workshop. And again, every table at the end got one emotion to work on. So table 1 would get the emotion, which I think was energized. And again, going to empathy. So we know people are feeling energized if we see or hear this and this. What are some of the actions and rituals and behaviors we want to put in place? What are some of the undesired behaviors that are stopping our people from feeling energized? And then what are some of the top 5 steps we could take to bring this emotion into life? And from there, we came up with specific experiments, and then we were tracking the experiments and so on. So there was a bigger thing, but that was just part of it, how we started talking about the culture we wanted to create. Okay, going back to closer to a second exercise I wanted to invite you to do. So a lot of us are either going through a change or helping others to go through a change. It can be a very small change or a bigger change. So the question is also, how do we want our people to feel through this change? Right? Do we even ask ourselves this question? Again, how do we talk to the elephants? How do we want these elephants to feel? I want to invite you to have a think about this, okay? So have a look here and think, maybe choose again 1 or 2 emotions. How do you want our people or your people around you that you are helping to go through a change? How do you want your people to feel through this change? And normally I would, again, in a workshop, I would ask the people involved in the change to choose maybe 5 top emotions, but I want you to focus on 1 or 2, the top most emotions you want them to feel, okay? Have a minute, have a look, and choose 1 or 2 cards. Okay, 20 seconds. Cool, okay. And you can I'm hoping you can expect what's going to happen next. We're going to look at the white cards. So how we don't want our people to feel through this change. Again, what are the 1 or 2 crucial emotions how you don't want people to feel through this change? Have a minute, I think. Okay, 20 seconds. I know it's hard thing to choose, right? Because you're going to think, I don't want any of these emotions to be felt by my team, but they will feel some of them. So you need to focus what you certainly don't want them to feel, and you can design your change around it. Okay, I hope you had a chance to choose the emotions. So, Ant, if we could give people a chance to go to breakout rooms, and again for 5 minutes, and share what emotions you chose and why you chose these emotions and why it is important for your people to feel or not feel these emotions during or throughout the change. Okay.
Cool. Opening those now, Jeffrey.
Cool. Thank you.
Hey, Ant, or whoever's facilitating. I don't, oh, there we go. I'm off.
All good.
How do we jump to these breakout rooms?
You should have a little, there should be a pop-up that comes up on your Zoom, which just says a little button that just says join break that. And it will take you into breakout room.
I don't see that.
Let me have a look.
In the meantime, I look at what's happening in the chat, and someone mentioned using mood meter, and so you can use this in a very similar way. What I do with some of the teams when we do this exercise, or they choose the 5 emotions, the desired and undesired emotions. Every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, I would send a very short survey at the end of the week asking, how often have you seen people around you feeling inspired? And how often have you seen them feeling uncomfortable? And again, to kind of give them a nudge to keep thinking about these emotions and keep observing and keep sensing, building the empathy, and also check in with themselves. How often do they feel all the positive emotions and all the negative emotions? So I think you can combine this very well. Cool. All right. I will go back to my slides. We are almost finishing. I have a couple more slides to show, and then I'm gonna be wrapping up. Oops, almost, sorry. Sure. Cool. Yeah, so I don't know what about you, but it is really interesting because when I think that, if we don't want, for example, if we decide that in our change, we don't want people to feel controlled. Okay, so it can change how we approach our change. It can influence how we approach our transformation. It will change how we design our transformation, right? And how do we engage people? How do we communicate with people and so on? So yeah, I hope you find it useful to reflect on that. So I think I will to conclude, there are a couple of other ways how we can use the deck. So I will just mention those. Oh, and that's another feedback I got from one of the, I think, team leaders, who said that that everyone came away from the workshop feeling better connected and more in tune with everyone else in the team. This has never happened to such a great degree before. So again, showing how powerful it can be to use these tools to create the connections. Some other ways how we can use it. In one-on-one coaching, where you can just bring the deck or a slide and you can ask person how you've been feeling in the last week, and you can go from there. Tell me more about when did you feel inspired, or why did you feel disconnected, and sharing also my own feelings if I feel that I want or should in a conversation. So for one-on-one coaching, it's also good kind of an opener. For meeting check-ins, very quick check-ins, give everyone a deck, or just show the slide if you're virtual, and ask people to check in with one of the emotions or two emotions from the slide or from the deck. One reason why it is so powerful is that this deck brings vocabulary to talk about emotions. And you can also notice that in the deck, there is no emotion like happy or sad. These very generic emotions that we often kind of associate with positive and negative emotions. And it's because these are too generic, and you can very easily kind of skip talking about the depth of the emotions. That's where here you have the most specific emotions, and you can there's always the blank cards which allow you to add your own emotions. So you can always say happy or sad. But the deck is designed in a way so that you need to be much more specific. So that's one thing. Oh, and going back to vocabulary, we often don't have the vocabulary we know the words, but we don't use them often. So they don't come up in our brain or in our mind when we are asked to talk about emotions. So this deck or these slides, they allow people to be much more, have more choice, and they can actually be more selective. And to give an example, when I was doing the workshop with one of the leaders, and she couldn't decide between did she want her people to feel open or open-minded. And she struggled. I think she spent maybe 5 minutes on it. And she was asking me, hey, Jakub, what's the difference? What's the difference between open and open-minded? And I told her, well, I'm not a native speaker. I don't know. You should know this. And she was like, oh, right. And then she chose open. And we were like, okay, so tell me, why did you choose open? And we kind of went into this discussion why open was more powerful, and that's how she wanted her people to feel, not necessarily. Open-minded was part of open, basically. And open was much more powerful for her. So this is the vocabulary you want. You want people to have this self-reflection and this finding the differences. What's the difference between brave and daring and rebellious? There's also a difference, and people make a conscious choice choosing one, not the other. So check-ins, you can also use it in recruitment. So you could use questions like when you're recruiting someone and asking the candidates, how do you want to feel at work and how you don't want to feel at work, to kind of create the deeper connection. And we can say that in our team, the emotional culture we're trying to build is for people to feel this top 5 emotions, and we absolutely don't want our people in the team feel these top 5 emotions. And check with the candidate if that's what they are aligned with, and what do they think about this, and so on. Another way to do it is to use in your family life. So this is an example of me and my wife. We did it about 2 years ago now for the first time, and this is how we chose how we want to feel in our relationship and how we don't want to feel in our relationship. And it is hanging next to our door, and it's so easy to check in with and self-reflect and check in with each other, how often we feel the yellow cards and how often we feel the pink cards and so on. So that's another way to to have this deeper conversation with your close ones and your loved ones. And of course, you can go remote. There's nothing stopping you. And I've been doing it for the last half a year. I'm using mostly Miro boards, and you can use either the slides that I just showed you, or you can use, I specifically have designed that's the Jeremy who created the deck. He created a special Miro boards that it's very easy to move the cards around. It's not so hard to create these boards anyway. So you can use this for people to play with it. And I found it very similar effectiveness of doing it remotely. And even for check-ins when lockdown happened, that was an amazing tool to give people a vocabulary to talk how they were feeling. Just open up it a bit more. Cool. I'd like to invite you to just have a think. What would you like to try? Is there anything you would like to try out of this? Anything that maybe surprised you, maybe changed the way how you think about emotions? Maybe if you could use the chat to let us know if you are if you feel okay with sharing. What's one of the things that you would like to try doing? Just go to the chat. Oh, I found chat here. Awesome. Is there anything you would like to try? I'd like to try everything. Nice, cool. Anyone else? I'm interested in trying this process with me and myself. Yep, cool. So that's what I haven't mentioned that, but I use it for my weekly reflections. Maybe not every week, but it's probably every second week or every third week. I set myself kind of emotions for a quarter, how I would like to feel in this quarter and how I don't want to feel in this quarter. And then I do check-ins in a kind of weekly retro on Friday afternoon. Every second, third week, I use the cards and I kind of reflect, how did I feel this week? And how is it aligned to how I wanted or didn't want to feel this week? And what actions could I take? What actions I could take in relation with myself and also in relation with others. What else? I'd like to try asking questions about what people would and wouldn't like to feel in a job interview context. Cool, nice. Try this next time. I'm trying to implement the change. Awesome. Keen to try this out with my teams. Nice. I'd be interested to see this from the business to consumer. Yep. So that was a different deck because I had all my emotional culture decks at work. So I was using different set of deck. So I don't know if you can see my camera, but there's a second deck called the customer experience deck, which has a very similar concept. It has a bit different emotions. It has only white cards. And how you can use them basically is you can design the product or the feature you're building. You can ask yourself how you want our customers to feel and how we don't want them to feel. And then go from there and start designing, building the empathy for the customer and designing it with this in mind. And I think it was John mentioning early on the chat that it was John? Was it John? It was John. Yeah, that they use it to design a training course. And that's brilliant. We did the same when I was back at ASB when we chose top 5 emotions we wanted and didn't want people to feel in the training. And because of certain type of training we're doing and with a certain group of people, we wanted them to feel very connected with each other, for example, which may not be the case if you're running a public course, for example. And we designed the training in a specific way to bring the connection to the front. What else you would like to try? And be more specific, open up discussion about emotion when dealing with team conflict. Yep. It can be very powerful when talking about team conflict, and you need to be skillful to do it well, but yep, it's a great tool. Interested to use at the beginning of a Scrum team implementation, nice. Using how I don't want people to feel to define an environment, nice. I think this is fantastic for team building. Cool. All right, great idea. Great ideas, thank you. Any other questions? Any questions you have that I could try and answer? Maybe either via chat or you can unmute yourself. Maybe Charlotte, how should we do it?
Yeah, I know that we've had a couple of people drop off. So yeah, maybe a couple of questions, if people have them. The first one, Patricia's just asked whether we could get access to your slides.
Yep. I can send it to you, Charlotte.
Great.
And then you
Okay.
can distribute. Cool.
Awesome. And Russia has asked, have you faced gender differences in emotional expression? Research show that women are more open to emotions than men.
Not really. I don't think I did. My intuition would tell me that maybe for women it's easier for them to have vocabulary that they might be using, but I haven't kind of been trying to find the difference and see if there's a difference. So maybe I wasn't sensitive to see the difference. So my answer would be I didn't see the difference. It doesn't mean that there is no difference.
No, fair enough.
May I? Just
Go, Patricia, go.
My experience says that there are gender difference that I've worked with project for a few years, and women, it's always more natural when talking about emotions than men. And I've also noticed a huge difference regarding culture. So for example, German are not so easy to talk about emotions in my experience as other culture. So yeah, I think they are, but it's just my experience. Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point. At the same time, if I could just add 2 comments to this. One way to kind of approach it, if you find people who are not so keen to try it out, is to frame it as a game, because you can use the cards and you can ask people, I wanted to play a game with you today. And we're going to use these cards and we're going to play a game to co-create something. And it kind of breaks the initial barrier for some people. Second of all, it's very important not to talk yourself out of doing things because you are afraid that people will react in a specific way. Again, we are all humans and we are sometimes very stereotypical about other people. So if you take me, I used to be a developer. So you might, if you look at developers, you might think, well, Jakob is introverted, he doesn't want to talk about emotions. But now I'm here and I'm talking to you about emotions and how important it is, right? So I think different people have different sensitivities, and you just need to make sure that you kind of tune in to the people and create a space when it's okay for them to talk about this stuff, and maybe introduce it in a slow way. So use it first time just to allow people to play it for a check-in and give them a chance to kind of get familiar with the emotions, and next time do something a bit more, and then next time a bit more. And as always, when you're facilitating it, and especially if you are some sort of a leader, or if you are perceived as a leader, it's important to start with an example and share your emotions first. You may remember what I did at the very beginning, how I shared how I was feeling today in the beginning of the session. I did it on purpose because I wanted to show you guys that I'm feeling okay to share my emotions and share my vulnerability. So I wanted to make it a bit more easier for you to do the same. So that's another way to invite people to be part of it.
We've got one more question that we've got time for today. Tawny.
Yeah, actually, it wasn't so much a question, but I do have a second question. But I just wanted to say that one of the other things that I have found in my experience with a lot of different cultures is that it may not be that they aren't expressing emotion, but they express it differently depending on the person. Even stepping back from the cultural differences, but just from getting to know those people from where their usual format for expression is, how that can be very different across the board, and that's really about just kind of developing, and especially now in a remote world, being able to kind of pick that up through a variety of means as well can be really helpful over time.
Thank you.
But yeah, I just wanted to say, is there anything out there digitally to help support some of the workshop areas of things, like aside from like the physical cards, but are there, virtual cards, apps, anything like that?
No apps as of now. I think that Jeremy and his company, Riders and Elephants, they are trying to create something maybe the near future. Right now, they are making the slides with the black and red and the white cards available for everyone, so anyone can use the slides. And it's not so hard to recreate it on a Miro board or Mural board, so you can try and use that. But there's an app that you can easily use. And
Right.
I'm pretty sure there are other ways how you can recreate it in some way, but nothing that I'm aware of.
Well, if anybody on this group happens to know some cool apps they'd recommend for digital workshopping, this kind of stuff, please flick me a message.
There's actually, Tawny, just to jump in there, if you look back through some of our previous Agile Wallies, there was one around handling remote retrospectives for Retrospective Day, which will give you a few tools. So check back on the meetup page and you'll find a link to a blog with all of the tools. But what I'm going to do is just call our evening there. Jakob, thank you so much for the very inspiring talk. I have screeds of post-it notes in front of me with some tips and tricks that I really want to take away over the next few days and start to implement. So thank you very much for your time. It's been very insightful. And yeah, we'd love to get a copy of your slides to share. And if you're open to it, if people have further questions that maybe they can come and start a chat on the meetup page that you might be able to respond to and drop some more tips and tricks in. But thank you very much also to AMP for having us been hosted on Zoom. Really appreciate that as well.